Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Today is July the 23rd, 1442 on the ancient moon calendar, 1441 on the ancient sun calendar, and 2021 on the ancient Greco-Roman calendar. June, Islam. I'm sorry. It is June the 23rd. I don't know why I keep wanting to make it July already. Something awesome is going to happen in July because I keep trying to rush it. So today we're going to take a look at some case law that the more we really, this case law is a prime example of why, number one, why we do not go to fake court. And yes, the ones doing business at Supreme Court is just as corporate as Walmart and Toys R Us. So the premise of this case, and we honor our brother who did this because he had great intentions when he did this. He went to the Supreme Court to have his government recognized, his nation recognized by the Supreme Court, so that if he could get them to recognize his nation as an original, indigenous, and in this case, he's the wording here says aboriginal. But if he could get them to recognize him, then they would remove a property from the tax rolls. So he had great intentions when he did this. And we honor the sovereign intentions of all the Moors who are demonstrating. It doesn't matter what the demonstration looks like. Doesn't matter how it turns out. We must demonstrate. So that's what the Grand Rising is all about, is do a demonstration, look at it, study it, look for the lessons in the demonstrations, and then learn from it and keep going. So we honor what our brother did when he took this to the Supreme Court Corporation, because the intention was good. I know it was, because we recognize the USAR, the Moorish National Republic Federal Government, and we said this on the public record, we recognize all Moorish governments and nations. And it's up to us to recognize one another that way, as opposed to trying to get some corpses to do that. So the first thing you'll notice, and Justice Theodore pointed this out, is that they have automatically, they put the Supreme Court of the United States, they put that in capitis diminutio minima, which means that the first letter only is capitalized. The rest of it is black. And then they put his sovereign-born appellation, which this is, again, this is, when it's in black and all capital letters, that's not what it is. It becomes a corpse then. They put it in red, in black and all capital letters, meaning that this corporation put themselves above the corpse that they created when they did this document. They turn every document that goes to the Supreme Court Corporation. It's really a corpse court. It's for the dead. That's why we don't go there. We're the living Supreme Court. All Moors are the living Supreme Court. And each one of us is the living Supreme Court, because sometimes people get it a little bit twisted and think that one of us can't be a whole court, but each one of us is a whole court by ourselves. That's what sovereign means. And if you think that one of us can't be a whole court, what do you think that those policy enforcers are doing when just one of them walks up and tries to hand the living some dead papers? They're doing a court action. They pronounced you guilty of being dead, and then they hand you the paper. And if you take paper from the dead, that means you think you're dead. So they already know. The hybrid foreign occupiers already know that one person, and we'll say person because we're talking about them, one person can do a whole court action on another person's court if the person does not know that they're not a person, that they're actually a sovereign, original, indigenous, ancient, natural, divine, Article 3 court all by themselves, by bloodline and birthright. So, yes, one of us can, just one sovereign, because see, a sovereign can govern a whole estate. We all do it all the time. Each one of us is governing our own sovereign vast estate. And then we all govern the vast estate together. So, in this case, right here on the front page, they went ahead and then they called him a petitioner. They called their corpse, not our brother, but they called their corpse a petitioner. Well, Moors are not petitioners. We're the heirs. So that's why we don't need their recognition for anything. Nothing at all. We just need to recognize one another and keep moving. Now, the reason that he went here was in reading this document. He went there to first gain recognition from them and then have them remove a property from their tax rolls. All of that changes now that we have our own money. Why? Because if we did not offer the true money, they were going to continue to charge the fake money. And they're not even charging us. Again, Moors have no debt. They're charging their courts, the one in all black and all capital letters. So again, that's why we don't go there. Their courts are not backed by anything but some fake money. That's why our courts are so important. And let me properly introduce myself as well. All rise and stand. This is a sovereign, original, indigenous, ancient, natural, divine, Article 3, Al-Moroccan, Moorish American Consular Court action. I am sovereign, living justice, Pauline Denise Ritchie, in capitis diminutio nolo, in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. No United States corporation, company, citizen, nor their agent, this Supreme Court of the United States is an agent, nor their agents, principals, heirs, assigns, nor any derivatives thereof has personam jurisdiction, territorial jurisdiction, or subject matter jurisdiction over me nor over any more. That's why we have our own court and do everything as a court action. So that it's clear and on the public record that these dead entities don't have jurisdiction over the Moors. So in further looking at this case, and I'll put a link in the chat to the case that this is from the Supreme Court docket. Let's see. This is from the Supreme Court docket, so let's put that in the chat. Yes, now see, yes, okay, so Justice Yergerel put in the chat, also the form of payment determines jurisdiction. Yes, Yes. If we had come out when we were doing consular court, if we had come out and said that we were going to be charging people for court actions, do you know how fast some fakes would have been trying to shut everything down? They would have been trying to shut everything down. And everything we said from that point forward would have been moot. Because they're already doing fake court with fake fiat. That's why we were determined to keep everything allodial and sovereign, and only back our court with our own gold and our own money. We had to. There's no other way to do it. Okay? So, just a moment. So then when we go to these, this is, and again, I get that Moors want to have it so that we're attempting to correct the records of the fake court. But you can't do that. Their records are never going to be correct because they're dead records to begin with. So then when you talk about the corpse and the status of the corpse, let me tell you what you do want. The Moors, and this has to be the case because, see, we can't be creating conflict on our own land. We can't do that. That's a no-no. We don't do that because it's against the treaty to create conflict on our land. So we do a court action on that black name, do a court action on it, send it to Guantanamo Bay to be decapitated. Now, I did that on January 1st, and it's out there on YouTube. And we're still here. Our head is still on our shoulders. We still have our office that our mother gave us. So now the things that we say and the things that the subjects say is the same. They issued warrants for that black thing too. So they're just doing what mother told them to do. So now there's agreement between us and the subjects on the land. We both want the debtor out of here because we're the ones who said no debt on the land. Moors don't have debt. So now that thing for us, it never did exist, but it really doesn't exist now. A name in all capital letters and black ink. So let's look further at this case, because again, you know, and they put here on this document, it was a petition for writ of certiorari to recognize his nation so that he could have a property removed. That's the problem with fiat. With fiat, they can do whatever they want with fiat, and those who use it. And you can see here, they labeled him a petitioner pro se. And we know what pro se means. Pro se means pro se cute. Okay? Right, Justice Amos, you nailed it. He said, do you see where they say reestablished nation state? We're not a reestablished anything. We were here long before they were been here and That's how you know. That's, again, they're trying to denationalize with every word. With every word. That's why it's important that we recognize one another and don't worry about whether they recognize it or not. We're using our own money for everything that we do and all of that, because I'm telling you all that other banking system, it is done. It's finished. They're trying to tell you right now it's done. It's finished. So now let's look a little bit further at this case, because I wanted to look at this. Of course, they're going to put the issue in their own terms, in black ink, capital letters, questions presented. It says, in this case, the petitioner officially proclaimed his true nationality by repatriating back to his newly reestablished nation state. Let's just rip that one apart. So Supreme Court Corporation got it all wrong. And that's why we would just, and this is what we can do about this, we would just rule on this, and we're ruling on it right now. Our brother is recognized by us, by this court. But we would take that and put it in red in all lowercase letters and change that, because repatriation, he never left. His blood never changed. He's still a Moor. Been a Moor, been the government, still the government. All Moors are the government. All Moors are the law. And why would the law go to them? We don't need to go to them for nothing. That's the point I'm trying to make. One of the points is Moors do not go to their courts looking for anything, because they're fake. Their courts are fake. We're the real court. And they're going to twist and turn and blacken everything. Repatriating back to his newly reestablished nation state. What? Who are they talking about? They're talking about their court. They're not talking about our brother. And then it says, talks about some provisions of the state charter and constitution of the petitioner's nation state government precludes, and they put government with a capital G. Really? Because, see, that changes the meaning, too, and puts it in a subject status. That's in capitis diminutio minima, which is a subject to the all lowercase Moors. It precludes the Commonwealth State of Virginia and Stafford County entity from subjecting the petitioner and his property to its taxation statutes and ordinances. This is a question. This is what they're saying. This is what's been brought before our Toys R Us Corporation. It says, due to the preclusions, the petitioner petitioned to have his property excluded from the tax roll of the Stafford County entity. The lower court asserted that it lacked jurisdiction to recognize the authority of the nation state. The lower court was trying to give a hint and say, we don't have jurisdiction for this. So the lower court actually acknowledged that he is sovereign. The lower court was a little bit more competent than this one here. But again, if the sovereign insist that these state courts, if we insist, and this is for future reference, if we insist that we be recognized by them, they're going to do it, but they're going to do it and say, okay, we recognize corpses only. It's like they're colorblind, because they are, but colorblind to anything other than black. Until somebody stands them up and says, we hereby restore your sight. You're healed. Now, look at that red writing. and see it for what it is. So there's still just at every turn, because see, we have to know each and every little thing that can be said or done that is denationalizing, so that we don't go around celebrating things that are not to be celebrated, okay, but that we study. It says the question, let's see, the lower court asserted that it lacked jurisdiction to recognize the authority of the nation state. That alone was enough for him to go ahead and issue to the tax collector, whoever that is that's doing business as tax assessor. He could have issued that and said, if one corporation doesn't have the authority, none of them do. But see, when we make the mistake of thinking one corporation is superior to the other, then it gets to be a little bit muddy there. A corporation is a corpse, is a corpse, is a corpse, is a corpse, period. It's a corpse. The same thing happened when I first woke up. I went to, well, this was when we had gotten those, they had issued some tickets, and we were newly demonstrating in 2017. This was before going into the camp. And we had gotten pulled over, and so I was sending affidavits with regard to the tickets that they issued to their court. And when the municipal, so I went straight from the fake municipal court was the one who called themselves issuing something, to the living and trying to get me to pretend to be dead. So then I issued it up, I sent it up to the U.S. District Court, Seattle U.S. District Court. And I put this on social media, it's out there. Now the fake lower court, so we'll talk about that at a different time, because we could go in so many different directions with that. I want to stay on topic. So when I sent the document to the Seattle U.S. District Court Corporation, because it's a corporation too, they said, we can't see you if you're in propria persona sui juris. They said, we can see you if you're pro se, but not if you're in propria persona sui juris. So I put it on social media, and I sent them something back saying, if you can't see me in propria persona sui juris, then that lower one can't see me in propria persona sui juris either. So I'm not going back there either, because I'm not a corpse. I'm the living. And sure enough, when I said that to them, not many months after that, it happened again, and this was the third time. So the test began. The test begins the third time for us. And so they pulled me over for nothing except being myself. And then you all know the story of me going into the POW camps and standing on my square in 2017. And so we just have to continue to prove to ourselves, because they already know who we are. That's why they do these kinds of things that's on the screen. They do that kind of stuff because we are supposed to know who we are. And we're there. We're there. So they're saying the questions presented focus on whether the courts of the Commonwealth of Virginia have the jurisdiction to recognize the authority of the petitioner's nation state, and whether the court shall, so that the petitioner may enjoy the legal protections recognized and provided for under his nation-state constitution that precludes the taxation of his property by the Stafford County entity. And again, that's why we say we honor the work that our brother did, because he had all the right intentions. He had everything He was doing all the right things and saying all the right things, but going to the wrong place. He had already issued the law. And when we issue the law, we don't go back to a corpse and say, is this law okay? Do you agree with this? Because they're dead. That's like going down to the cemetery saying, oh, this, this vegetable soup is good. What y'all think about it? And the people in the cemetery, they don't have an opinion about how great vegetable soup tastes. If we say it's good, period. For us. That applies to the living. So in our minds, just see all corpses and fake courts that's not done by the Moors as the cemetery, because that's what it is. It's a cemetery. So now, when they put in this sentence, the questions presented focuses on whether the courts of the Commonwealth of Virginia, they're telling you right there by using a capital C for Commonwealth and a capital V for Virginia that that's not who we need to be going to anyway, because they're operating in black capitalist system. They can call it a Commonwealth all day long. It's still a court system that they're using. That's why we don't need to go there, period. And again, we honor the intentions of all Moors who find themselves in those courts, but we don't need to go there. We're the court. Why would we go there? And when the prophet said, go to those who know law, he wasn't talking about the dead folks, because clearly they don't know the law. We're not a newly established anything or newly reestablished anything. We're ancient. You see? Yes, corpses of the Holy Corporate See. So now, Justice Yezreel, that's brilliant what you put there, because when they call it a Holy See, that means they can only see corporate corpses. They can only see the dead. That's what they're saying, because the Holy See in black in all capital letters and in black ink, period, means that's what they see, black ink, capital letters, period. The Holy See that is the Moors in red and all lowercase letters can see the living. And see, that's why we say all rise and stand, because we can't even see them dead. We actually have to raise them from the dead in order for them to speak, or else we don't hear nothing they say. If we don't raise them from the dead, they can't raise themselves. If they could, they'd have done it and left us dead. We didn't delegate that. We don't delegate any of our sovereign authority to anyone. Anyone is ours, and we're keeping it because it's in our blood. So when you all have some time, this is a 33-page document. When you have some time, just look through it, because this is important. We have to know that we cannot go to those fake courts expecting anything of them except corpse behavior. They can only see corpses. That is why the ones doing business that were doing business as a black pope, Francis, in all capital letters and all of that, that's why the courts are under, or those courts are under them. And the one that was doing business as Prince Philip, who was the postmaster in all black and all capital letters, that one, all of that. All of the fake courts were under them. because they're all dead. They're all dead. Every last one of them in black ink in capital letters, or in black ink in capitis diminutio minima. Black ink, period. That's why we don't use it unless we're talking about them. And they're showing you here, when they release this kind of stuff, they're showing you that they're black. Every time you see this, just know they're yelling from the rooftops, we're black dead corpses, and we can only see black dead corpses. We can't see the living. And if you come to us, we're going to put you in dead status. Yes, they have been hypothecating as the black nobility. That's a hypothecation. No such madness exists, really. It does not. We are the white nobility. White means sovereign. White means pure. It means living. And the science of it is chromosomal. Our chromosomes, the chromosomes of mother, are all consistent all the way across the board. They're all the same. And mother can produce everything else, everyone else. Not everything, everyone else. Because of those X's going all the way across. That's why we're called X-Men. That's why we're called X-Men. And the show X-Men is about the Moorish matriarchs and our ability to transform, transmute, change, conquer, etc. So now, the question presented according to this fake court, it says, do the courts of the Commonwealth of Virginia have the jurisdiction to recognize the authority of the petitioner's re-established nation state? What's wrong with that question? What's wrong with that question? I'm going to unmute. And anyone who wants to discuss what's wrong with this question here, just star 6. Do the courts of the Commonwealth of Virginia have the jurisdiction to recognize the authority of the petitioner's re-established nation state?
Islam?
Islam.
Well, they start off with a false premise, for one thing.
And what's that?
Nation state. What they're doing is they're setting it up. They're setting him up for they're setting the whole thing up as a fiction. He's a Moor. He doesn't come from a nation state. I mean, you established that he doesn't come from a nation state. So what they're doing is they're setting it up with a false premise. So really, anytime.
Silly Negroes, this is all Pauline's fucking fantasy, you silly Negroes.
Hold on for a minute.
Nothing but Pauline's.
Go ahead, nobility.
And the case was never heard in.
Anytime someone attempts to pose a question that's based on a false premise, you really don't have a question that you can answer. They start off with the presupposition that he's a fiction, right? Yeah. Coming from a nation state, which is false. Yeah. It's false ab initio. They can't see him simply because he's real. And their corporation, and it's two totally different jurisdictions, they don't have access to him. They don't have access to the living. That's why they couldn't see him.
And the lower court said that. The lower court said that.
Exactly.
The lower court said, nope, we're not touching this one. We're not touching it. The lower court corporation, because they're just as dead. And now, if you look at this question, the ones who wrote this question are already telling everyone that all of the courts are the same. They're telling them all the courts are the same.
They come from the same place. They can't be different. They all have the same master.
Yes. And they're all pushing fiat, right and left. So, and then question number 2, do the courts of Virginia have the obligation to recognize those rights of the petitioner that are recognized under the provisions of the Charter, Constitution, and laws of the petitioner's nation, state, government? Now look where they put nation with a lowercase n, and then state government with a uppercase S and an uppercase G. That stem from the recognized rights under the provisions of the Constitution, laws, and ratified treaties of the United States. Now, this is why we keep emphasizing the difference between in capitis diminutio minima, media, maxima, and in capitis diminutio nolo, and red ink. Because if you read this and you don't know the difference between black ink and red ink, and capital letters and lowercase letters, you're going to think that they actually are putting forth an issue here when they've already ruled on it by the way they wrote it. Already ruled on it. And then they put right with a capital R because they already know that their courses don't have any rights. So they changed the definition of it by adding a capital R to it. Petitioner. He's not a petitioner. He is a sovereign heir. And all it takes is for him to recognize himself. And for other Moors to recognize him like we're doing today. We recognize our brother. We recognize all Moorish governments, etc. This is a great case study, and I'm so glad that he did this so that we could study it and learn from it. And then they're saying about here the laws of the petitioner's nation state government that stem from the recognized rights under the provisions of the Constitution. We're not under any Constitution. We're not under any Constitution. We're not under any paper. We're aligned with the Constitution for the United States in red in all lowercase letters. We're aligned with that. We're not under it. We're not under any treaty. We don't need to hide under a document for protection when we're sovereign. Yes, there it is right there in the chat. Justice Theodore, you pointed it out. Justice Yezerel, capitals make it fiction and black ink makes it dead. Yes. Or vice versa. Capitals make it dead because in the U.S. writing style manuals and the law writing style manuals, it states that any word in all capital letters is either a U.S. vessel, a corporation, or a dead person. So it's the capital letters that kill. The bibliotelio text says that the letter killeth, but the spirit maketh alive. Doesn't it say that and see the bibliotelio text is the one that we see today is a hypothecation of the ancient records written by the Moors. Yes, Christianity came from the Moors. We know this. Not that fake version, fake commercial version you see today. Not that one. That one is a corporate fiction too. So they're putting these questions here just as a matter of formality, basically. Because again, they ruled at on page 1 is when they did their ruling. Just by the way they presented page 1 in all capital letters, and then they put the court in capitis diminutio minima, and it's all in black ink. So now they're talking about the Constitution, and they're sliding things under the Constitution, and then they put Constitution with a capital C in black ink. And then they talked about ratified treaties of the United States. Well, if you talk about ratified treaties of that United States instead of these United States, and these being the United States in red and all lowercase letters, which is the states that are united as Moorish nation and Moorish government. That's the real United States, us, we are, in red and all lowercase letters. This one is not party to any treaties. Not at all. In black ink. That's like going down to a cemetery saying, okay, we need all the parties to this treaty to go ahead and exercise all your rights, and then just look around and wait for them to get up and start exercising rights. The Walking Dead. Period. So then let's look a little further, because see, they did some stuff here that and I'll let you look, because this is filled with things that we need to see. This is the table of contents of it. And look at the table of contents. Now, we already know they can do things in lowercase letters. We see lowercase letters, but they specifically put everything in all capital letters because they already know they're not talking about anything lawful. So they're like, okay, we'll just type this up for general purposes. But here they're going to tell the truth right here. The petition was granted, okay, reasons for granting the petition. This is not what it looks like. I'm going to tell you that it's not what it looks like. They granted the petition because the heirs insisted on going to them. But what did they really grant? Because that's what we have to look at. A, this court's review is warranted to ensure the petitioner's recognized rights under the 9th Amendment, 13th Amendment, and 14th bullshit. Amendment.
This is all bullshit. Capital letters and...
They don't want us to look at it. They don't want us to look at it. But we gonna call it like we see it. Islam. So now it says here, this court's review is warranted to ensure, and they put ensure with a capital E because they already know what they're really doing, to ensure the petitioner's recognized rights under the 9th Amendment, 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment, and under the ICCPR are not unlawfully stripped. What did they just do there? Somebody please point out, what did they just really do?
Denationalize them again.
Again! Again! And slid them right on, now not our brother, they slid their corpse right on under the 14th Amendment, which was not ratified by any living being. Go back and look. Not ratified by any living being at all. You would have to be dead to even propose the 14th Amendment. In black ink and capital letters.
Islam.
Islam.
They have to use the capital letters because they can only deal with fiction. And look at this. If they were to write his name properly, they would be given written evidence of fraud, because the courts can't see the living, just as you said, and then they would be given written evidence of it.
Well, and then what happens when they give written evidence? The sovereign turns around and does a court action and sends them to Guantanamo Bay to be decapitated.
Exactly.
Because it's a corpse. In the movie The Living Dead, they showed you what you're supposed to do with corpse. You get them in the head. A corpse, and when we talk about decapitating corpses, don't let anybody fool you. Corpses don't come from anybody's womb. So we're not talking about people. We're talking about those acting in a corpse or dead status. And the only reason they do that is because the Moors, see, again, it's going to come back to us anyway, because we're God. We control everything. So we can't even blame them. We just got to raise them from the dead. Corpses don't come from any sovereign womb, period. They come from the womb of the fake mother, the Pope. That's why he wears a dress, pretending to be the mother. In black ink and all capital letters. And again, we're not mad at any breathing, living being. We're raising all of them from the dead. That's why we say all rise and stand with every call. And if we don't say it, it's printed up on the screen. And if we don't print it up on the screen, it's our intention. That means it happens every time. So they done slid their corpse back under the 14th Amendment. And then Part B says this court should resolve the matter, resolve the matter, because the matter is already solved, but they're going to resolve it. Resolve the matter of the courts of Virginia with respect to the lack of jurisdiction to recognize the authority of the petitioner's nation-state government. They're recognizing their corpse as a corpse. They're saying, yes, corpses are corpses. All under the 14th Amendment of a corporate constitution and not the real one. So what do we do with these types of things when we see them? Moors, this is what we do when those, because see, there's a bigger goal here. There's an ultimate goal here. Since they do whatever they want with their corpses, and see, that's why when people are trying to say that they're the authorized representative of a corpse, the corpses say, no, you're not. You can't have our dead. Anybody trying to represent a corpse, they will be quickly re-educated by the corpses, saying you ain't taking our corpse nowhere. Our corpses stand in our system. And letting the dead bury the dead is the next phase. This phase is going to be a little more. It's going to be a little more targeted. A lot more targeted, actually, because from this point forward, the corpses, C-O-R-P-S-E-S, the corpses, the corporations, want all of their dead. They want them. They want their dead back because the Moors said, take all of that dead stuff off the land. Take all your debt with you. and their corpses are a lien. They're foreign, and they are a lien on our land, and we're the only ones doing the liening around here. So now what? The corpses are going to be taking their black ink and capital letters, and anyone who thinks that they're black ink and capital letters with them. That's what's happening. I'm glad that our ancestors are not brutal. They're not brutal, and they're not sadomasochists. They don't want us uncomfortable or in pain. They do want us to grow, though. So we have to know the difference between us and those black entities, and then we have to do a court action. Each one of us has to do a court action sentencing that black thing that hypothecated our mother's sovereign words on the day that we were born. Each one of us has to do a court action on that thing and send it to Guantanamo Bay for decapitation. Or you can send it to Puerto Rico for decapitation. But it must go. And then what's going to happen is when you do that, I'm just telling you now because it's going to happen. When you do that, they're going to test you again and say, okay, do you really know what you just did? You just separated yourself from all debt. You just separated yourself from capitalism and the dead system, period. So let's make sure you know who you really are. One last time. And then they're going to test you, whatever that looks like. And see, we're being tested all along the way to desensitize us because we're some Moors are so sensitive to testing that when someone gets tested, they're traumatized and they're like, it doesn't have to be that way. We shouldn't be doing that. When in the Circle 7, Chapter 1, and our Grand Sheik read it this past Friday, it clearly states that without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength. And it says, but man will regain his lost estate, his heritage. That's not even a question. That's a statement. But let him know that cherubim and seraphim that rule the stations of the sun and spirits of the mighty Allah, who rule the solar stars, are his protectors and his guides, and they will lead to victory. We're going to be tested. I'm just telling you now. It says it right here. In the Holy Quran of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, the Circle 7, as divinely prepared by the noble prophet Jurali. We're going to be tested. But we don't have anything to fear. It also says that in there. We don't have anything to fear. We got ancestors all around us, seraphims and cherubims, ancestors, and then the energy of our brothers and sisters that goes with us. That's why it's important for us to first get fully comfortable in being our sovereign selves when when it's just us. Islam in the chat, Justice Almost, hence why we must study to know. See, our ancestors sequestered many of us. Most of us are sequestered the first year of our awakening. We look around and we don't see Moors anywhere, and so we just study and study and study. We keep our head in the books and in the law, and then we go out and demonstrate. I saw what our ancestors were doing that first year. At first, I didn't understand it at all. I was just kind of like, why is it just, you know, I know there's more people who know about this. As huge as this information is, there has to be more people that know about it. But the ancestors wanted us to be tested when it's just us alone, so that we know our strength and so that we know we have nothing to fear. Then you can bring in 5 or 10 other Moors, or 15 or 20 or 30 other Moors. And listen, when each one of us is tested sui generis in proprio solo, when we're tested in proprio solo and we can stand, which all of us can, and all of us have at some point, there's not a Moor, especially not on this call, that hasn't been tested already and stood their sovereign status and prevailed. So the ancestors are desensitizing us to the testing so that we're not so traumatized by the testing that we can't pick ourselves back up and strengthen up. It's like going to the gym. If you traumatize your muscles, you won't be able to use them for a while until they recover. But some people already know. They don't care how much that muscle hurts, they're going to use it. So that we know that we have the authority to recognize ourselves and not any fake court. This is a beautiful case study to look at, because people say that these courses are lawless. They're not. They're sitting there telling you everything you need to know. We just have to know how to read. They're telling you, we don't have jurisdiction over you all. You're the living. We don't have it. But you're also sovereign. And if you say, if you come to us, then we don't have a choice there either. We have to denationalize you and put you in the proper status for our fake dead court, so we can see. And then we just gonna lay that old citizen laws, codes, and statutes on you. You know, they're telling the Moors. They're actually the lower court. That lower fake corporation said, we can't see the Moors, and that alone is enough. So now we have to come out of that black status in every way. Don't try to represent that thing. Send it to be decapitated and then be yourself. You can't represent the dead. You're the living. That's like me going down to the cemetery saying, I'm taking me somebody to the grocery store today, and I'm going to shop for you because you need some groceries. So I dig up the body, and I go take this corpse and drag it down to the grocery store saying, you need to eat. You need to eat. You don't look so good. You need to eat. So I'll just help you eat. Yes. All of that in the chat. This is Israel. He says that's why it's important to study to reclaim intuition, which means to see into it. Yes. It's splitting hairs, but those are hairs that have to be split when you're talking about the difference between red ink and black ink and capital letters and lowercase letters. It matters. And if you let them push you around with that black thing, after a while, they'll get tired of pushing you around and just lock you up and keep you locked up for a while. That's the equivalent of putting the straw in your jugular and just, that's it. And just drinking all your blood. Yes, we have to know the deeper meanings. We have to know what to look for. And see, when they do that, yes, just Peter, they make bonds off of their dead. And a bond is actually, that word has several different dimensional meanings. Yes, they do a paper bond, but they are also bonding themselves to you, hoping to stay the living dead a little longer. Now, yes, it is a binding. It is joinder. Yes, they're enjoining themselves. And we can't, we're not having it. We rebut that publicly. There's no joinder between us and the dead. None. Not even financially. And that's what the Dillarium is all about. We needed to break that joinder spell too. I'm hearing things about, Moors taking 2 or 3 chips of gold and backing the U.S. dollar. Well, they don't have the printer that prints that stuff. So why would you back that? You can't back it because you don't control it. And that's the one with capital letters, etc. Now, the United States dollars in red and all lowercase letters, we do control that because we're going to print that too. We're going to print that too. But that's going to be a joint endeavor. And we'll talk about that. And it's not joint endeavor with anybody dead, no dead corpses, no nothing. Only the living. And that's only the living where they've done everything in red and all lowercase letters. The living. Thank you. Justice Jezreel, you said it. FRN in capital letters and black ink, that's not ours to back. It is not. And sometimes when you start talking about that fiat, some folks get a little sensitive and say, well, everything came from us. Yeah, but there's a shadow out there of the lower self. Because see, higher self, lower self, and then there's a shadow out there of that. That's no excuse. Because those same ones that's saying, well, everything came from us, the minute somebody gets violated under that black status, they're going to cry more. Moorish this and Moorish that. And how come the Moorish government isn't doing this? The Moorish government is the ones running that's saying that. So be yourself. And stop trying to cling to Federal Reserve debt notes. And that's just a little energy for just the 1 or 2 or 3 that's out there trying to perpetuate that mess. That's why we haven't started with our sea salt, because our sea salt, we don't recognize Federal Reserve debt notes. We only do more sovereign Dillarium and United States dollars in red and all lowercase letters. And that's actual gold coins that we print. All Moors, that comes from us too. Just like this Dillarium comes from all Moors. Every Moor who chooses to use it is coming from you. And the Moors who choose not to use it, you got to use something as a means of exchange. And if you think that Federal Reserve debt notes is the answer, you're sadly mistaken. We must have our own everything. Our own everything. So, in looking at this case, you can look here, reasons for granting the petition. We could go to page 9. Let's go to page 9 and look at the reasons that they claim they granted the petition. Because they're just saying our courts, our courts, we recognize our courts and we're putting our courts under the 14th Amendment, period. See, the lower court had it right. But jurisdiction, it says petitioner seeks review of the decision of the Supreme Court of Virginia. And again, our brother had great intentions when doing this, and we honor his work. We just want to focus on the fraud of this one doing business at Supreme Court. That's what we're focused on, is the fraud of that. The judgment of the Supreme Court of Virginia was entered on September 18, 2018. This court has jurisdiction over this timely filed petition pursuant to 28 U.S.C. 1257A. So they're now saying, okay, a corporation has jurisdiction over the petitioner. And that's true. But the petitioner is their corpse in black. It's not the Moor. So they still don't have jurisdiction. And that's why their decisive says, and this is why we don't need to go to them. Their decisive says that jurisdiction cannot be waived even by consent of both parties. Jurisdiction cannot be waived even by consent of both parties because that blood is not changing. It's still going to be Moorish sovereign blood, and dead corpses have nothing to do with that. They put some things in here. They're sitting here telling you right here. Now, and again, we have to know how to read. They're sitting here telling us the impairing the obligation of contracts clause of Article 1, Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution provides. What they're saying when they talk about the impairing the obligation of contracts, impairing the obligation of contracts, they're saying the obligation to contract is impaired if there's no gold money, gold and silver coins as a tender in payment of debt. That's Constitution, Article 1, Section 10. They're sitting here saying just as clear as day, they can't do it. They still don't have jurisdiction. But someone has to come up with some gold and silver coin as tender in payment of debt. We don't have debts, so we're doing more sovereign delarium. And it's gold backed. How do we know that? Because our sovereign autograph goes on each and every one of the more sovereign delarium. And it's going to be a red wet ink signature too. A red wet ink autograph and a right red thumbprint on the money. And that's of each Moor. Each Moor should do that. You will be signing or autographing your own Moorish sovereign delarium because you're just a sovereign. We're all sovereign. And we're saying we have the only valid money. Now, I'll tell you what's going to happen in some cases. In some cases, the first thing that's going to be said if you don't raise them from the dead is, well, we don't accept that here. That's not real. That's the same thing. All they're saying is we can only see black. And if you look on the Federal Reserve debt notes at the signatures on them, what color is the signature on the Federal Reserve debt notes? And in most cases, it's two signatures on there on Federal Reserve debt notes. Look at them. What color are those signatures? Black. With a capital letter at the beginning. And they make sure that no matter what their signature looks like, when you see people swoop up that first letter and make sure you know it's a capital letter, they're telling you there, they're dead. They're dead. And anybody passing that stuff see, this is the crazy part about the Federal Reserve debt note. The reason why the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 says that anyone using Federal Reserve debt notes is a Federal Reserve agent is because you're passing a signature off as your own, a black signature. They're still putting you under a black signature. We don't even have signatures. We have autographs. So now that's like you passing somebody else's contract saying, I approve of this contract, this dead contract. There it is in the chat, Justice Theodore. Look, 2 black signatures with capital letters at the beginning of them on the front of that instrument. Let me see if I can. And I'd love to copy that and put it on the screen so that Morris can see it. Okay. I just needed a link, but that's okay. They can look at the fake dollars for themselves. They can look at them and see that stuff is not real. So, yes, Justice Jezreel, you said it. That's how important language is. We got to pay attention to detail. And yes, we pay attention to detail. There it is, right there on the screen. Let me make sure that it's shown. Thank you, Justice Theodore. Let me see if I can get that thing on the screen.
Islam?
There it is. Islam, nobility.
Yeah, I wanted to say something about impairing the obligation of contracts. Anything that weakens a contract impairs the obligation. And so they already know that they don't have jurisdiction over the Moors. It was written into law. You go back, you see it at the original Article 13 at Section 12. Yeah. You see it if you look in Bouvier's Law Dictionary 1856, I believe it is, under the definition for citizen. It tells you that we're not citizens. It tells you we can't be citizens. And see what they were doing. They were just following. You hear people when we discuss the Dred Scott decision, and people they say, "Well, Judge Taney was being racist against the blacks. He said they couldn't be citizens." He was just telling the truth. He was saying what we put in law. If you go back to Articles of Confederation 1777 and you read Article 2, it tells you that we were to retain our sovereignty, freedom, independence, every power, jurisdiction, and right, which is not by this Confederation expressly delegated to the United States and Congress as assembled. That whole paragraph is about the Moors.
Yes.
I yield.
We just have to know how to read, Justice Jezreel. See,
you got to be able to read, and read means to interpret. We know, right?
Yes. That's the true definition of read. Learn is to know how to interpret. That's the definition of read. Very powerful, very powerful, very powerful. They've been talking about the Moors the whole time, but if we don't know how to read, we would have never known that. We would have thought we're nowhere in there when it's all about us. So look at this thing on the screen. Can you see this? Is it on the? Is the dollar the quote unquote the Federal Reserve debt note? Is it showing on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Look at it. Look at this thing. Now, look how they made sure that you know that the first letter is capitalized in black ink. Look at that. And then they put their titles in black ink, in capitis diminutio minima. So then when we're passing this thing back and forth, it's a contract. It's already signed by the contractees. Isn't it? Yeah, it's a contract. That's why the Moorish Sovereign Dollarium is going to have each of our red hot signatures, autographs on them, and our right red thumbprint. Yes, Justice Yezerel, that is true. The high contracting parties, as mentioned in the Secret Treaty of Verona, that's who those black signatures belong to. The high contracting parties, as mentioned, specifically in Article 3 of the Secret Treaty of Verona, talking about the docility and them wanting to do things to continue to increase the docility of the heirs. Well, docile means if we had decided to stay docile, which we have not, we would not be moving forward with our own money. We would not be moving forth with our own money. There it is right there. Why? Because when you're docile, you just don't care. You just want rest. You just want sleep. We care. And we know what the law is. And again, in that case, they're sitting up telling you about the impairment of the contract. Now, again, people want to say that those hybrids are lawless. No, they keep putting it in front of us, but we just have to know how to read. We taught them how to read. To keep, see, that's what docility is, to keep the nations in a state of passive obedience. And we're not doing it. We have to actually make a choice to wake up. And here's the thing. Even if you're a Moor who does not agree completely with the things that we say and the laws that we point to, because we keep pointing to the law, we're going to keep pointing to the law. Even if you do not agree with everything, you have to know that they're fiat, because, see, we've been telling them, fiat fake, fiat fake, fiat fake. Then you should be the first one in line for sovereign dollaria. Just on principle alone. Just on principle alone. So that you can stop using those things right there and those black signatures and stop passing that stuff around on your land. It's that, just on principle alone. Even if you just keep it in your possession, put it in your wallet. I have it in my wallet. Real money, autographed with the right red thumbprint. Just for GP, general principle, in red and all lowercase letters. Yes, Justice Theodore. There it is. They're sitting there telling you, right there on the screen. And then they got black capital letters all the way across the top, the United States of America, in capital letters and black ink. And then they have, this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private, in black ink and all capital letters, which means that's actually going to increase the debt. Every time you use it, you're increasing the debt. Debt increases. Legal, but not lawful. Yes, Empress Portia, legal but not lawful. There it is. So we did learn some things by looking at their fraudulent contract, and we said, okay, how can we clean this up? Because they're teaching us how to govern. Well, we clean it up by putting our own sovereign red ink in capitis diminutio nolo autograph on it, on our money, and printing it up. Because that's all they were doing. They got a good hot printer and just started printing things up. Legal is in all caps too, which means it ain't legal. Not even legal. See, legal in red and all lowercase letters is valid. In red and all lowercase letters, let me tell you what it looks like. It looks like when we issue a war rant for that black Pauline Denise Ritchie corpse, pretending to be the living me, When we issued a war rant and sent that thing to Guantanamo Bay to be decapitated, legal in red and all lowercase letters is going to be when the lower court that we put them in subject status, when they issued war rant for that thing in alignment with what we did. But they said, okay, but we gotta make sure that the living knows that she's not that thing, so that she'll never go back to using that. No matter what. So I said, I'm never going back to that. War rant from the Moorish American Consular Court. And why is it consular? Because we're not the same status as that dead thing. That's why it's consular. And yes, we were not doing that by ourselves. Everyone who witnessed that was with us, including the ancestors. We're never alone. So again, some people say one person can't be the court. They're right, a person can't, but one sovereign can and is. And that's all of us. So don't buy that one. Boy, people keep trying to not accept sovereignty, but it is what it is. A sovereign can be in proprio solo, because that's what that means. In your proper person, solo. So why would we keep saying that if that's not true? Yes, we're the court, each one of us. So I got to get this garbage off my screen. Got to get the garbage off my screen. So let me go back to, okay, let's go back to this. Again, they're telling him about the us. They're telling all of us about how it's the money that needed to be changed, because there's no real money. There was no real money until gold, silver, and Moorish sovereign dollarium, and any other Moorish money. Because there's other Moors out there that are doing money, and we honor and recognize their money. It's just as sovereign and lawful and legal for us as Moorish sovereign dollarium. And we're excited about that because we get to trade and exchange with our own. That's exciting. So I think that's all that we wanted to, well, let's just point this out. The full faith and credit clause. When they put this here on this document, they were saying, again, that if you come to us, that means your full faith and credit is in us and the fake money we pass around. If you come to our fake, that's what they were saying. If Moors go to those fake courts, then they're invoking Article 4 of their U.S. Corporation Toys R Us Constitution, the dead one, not the living. Full faith and credit shall be given in each state to the public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of every other state. Remember, we've been saying it, the blacks aren't a state. And when we say the blacks, y'all know what we mean. Black ink, capital letters, the blacks are not a state. They're not. So why is this issue? So we can look at it, put it in red in all lowercase letters, and know exactly where to look to put everything in its proper place and proper status. And put everyone in their proper status. So if this were my case, if I had done this not knowing that I don't need to go to them and that I'm not any name in black ink and capital letters, in fact, we don't have names, we have appellations, I would take this whole thing right here, go through it with my reading glasses on, my third eye, reading eye. I'd look at it with the reading eye. And I would put everything in red in all lowercase letters and change the language where it needs to be changed. And then recognize myself. And then put that on a public record and send it to the fake one. And say, we don't need you. We recognize ourselves. That's what I would do if that were me. Because again, his intention was honorable. Our brother's intentions were honorable when he did that. You know. So they even, right here, the supremacy clause, they put that in there because they already know who the supreme law is. They're saying, you're the supreme law. Where are your judges? Where are your judges? And some of those foreign black dead ones that were doing business as judges have asked that question of the Moors who came to their fake venues. Where are your judges? Where are your courts? Knowing that we're supposed to be the court. And we are the court. So even in our court actions, because let's read this supremacy clause. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made, and treaties is in lowercase letters here, as opposed to at the beginning of this when we pointed out that treaties is in uppercase letters. It has a capital T at the beginning of this document. It says, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. They're sitting here telling us again, you all need judges. You need judges. You got to have judges, and if you have judges, then everyone else has to be bound by what your judges say and the treaties that you put forth, that we put forth. I've heard some people say, yes, it is a great case to study. We honor our brother who did it, and we thank him for this beautiful study because we need to know. We need to know. And it's only when Moors have the guts to do the demonstration and make it a public demonstration, no matter how the demonstration turns out, have the guts to put it out there on the public record so we can study it. That's what we do. We put it all out there. All the demonstrations, we just put them out there, documents and everything, so we can see what happened. So that we know. That's the only way we're going to know, is to demonstrate and look at the demonstration and look for the lessons in it. You know, some Moors, when they start to be tested, they become a little bit bitter and they want to start looking outward and placing blame. Don't do that as a suggestion. because you can't tell sovereigns what to do. It's better to look for the lessons in it and know that even if you don't see all of the lessons that the ancestors are going to take care of you, it might be a little bit of a sacrifice sometimes. You might not be able to see all the way around the corner, but we never have been seeing when we were asleep. We just assumed things were going to turn out a certain way, and guess what? It was just the opposite of what we thought. We sitting up, just being taken, just in citizen status, thinking we're in citizen status, and just the corpses are just running us through their systems and all of that. And we're like, wait a minute. That's what causes us to wake up. It's testing. I know very few Moors who woke up that did not have at least one ticket that they thought was theirs. Ticket from a policy enforcer or something, or some bill that was quote unquote due, that they were saying, wait a minute, I can't pay this. And it's like, it ain't your debt in the first place, but you need to know who you are. I don't know of any Moors who nationalized that didn't have some of that stuff going on, where they're taking people who thought they were good citizens and running them through the ringer. And then, and see, we'll deal with that system like that in our sleep, but then when we wake up, we're thinking, we get bitter and angry about the testing. And then, you know, sometimes we'll have people around us saying, see, you know, they telling you all this stuff, but look at what's happening to you. Don't, that energy, keep that energy away from you. We're not talking about people, we're talking about energy. Keep that energy away from you while you free yourself. Don't let people talk you against somebody else when you're being tested, because it will happen and it's very subtle. Very subtle. You can tell when they're doing it. You can feel it in your spirit that, oh, he's about to talk me against my sister. He's about to talk me against my brother just because it appears that I might be vulnerable because I'm being tested. Don't allow that energy to enter your testing room, your classroom. Yes, Justice Israel said it. He said, this is our classroom. Yes, we're doing this in just live, right here, out in the open, in the public. And when I say public, it's spelled the way we spell it, and it's in red and all lowercase letters. In other words, we're learning right here, right where we are, at ancient Morocco. So when you're being tested, stay tuned to the ancestral energies within you, so that you can move any energy that might appear to be bitter energy, or energy that would make you want to get upset with the testing, or energy that says we shouldn't be going through this. That energy never brings anything good to the test. We shouldn't be going through this. We the heirs. Actually, the heirs should be going through testing, because if it was easy, anybody could do it. The heirs are supposed to be tested because nobility is proven. It's not assumed. Because there are some who look like us who are not the nobility. But we know that already. So, is there any other wisdom or input that you want to put in here? The enumeration of rights clause. Let's look at that real quick too, because I think this is the last thing on the page that they put. The enumeration the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. In Article 1, Section 9, somewhere, I believe it's 8 or 9 or 10, right in there, it talks about, well, I know it's Article 1. It talks about direct taxes and capitation. That is enumeration, using capital letters to tax. That's enumeration. And what this is saying is the enumeration in the Constitution, because it's gonna lay out who can tax and who can't tax and all of that. The enumeration of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. And people does not have a capital P, it has a lowercase p. So the ability of the Constitution to secure the right of taxation by we, the people, in red and all lowercase letters, shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by we, the people. We can lay taxes on others who are not using our money. Now, that's another something I wanted to point out to us. As we move into the more sovereign Dalarian piece, anybody who's using Federal Reserve debt notes, we can tax them, and we just gonna burn it. We just gonna burn the money. That it's not money, it's fiat. It's commercial, private commercial paper that has no value. That was put on the screen has no value. And anybody still using it shouldn't be using it. Because you can't have, light and dark cannot exist together. It's going to be one or the other. It can't be both at the same time. How do I know that? Because I do know for a fact that the banks, now we've heard about them confiscating their money or their fiat, their Federal Reserve debt notes. They've been confiscating Federal Reserve debt notes straight out of people's accounts of their courses over in other places. They've been just emptying everything out so that the people, don't have any resources. They started that here on our land, where anything that comes in, they take it. Because they already know we're doing more sovereign Dalarian. And see, this is what they want you to do, us to do that we cannot do. When they take what comes in, because even since 2008 it's been a gift, they put that on the public record, that anything put in a corporate bank is a gift to the bank. Look, that's been in their codes and statutes since 2008. But what they want us to do is pick up the phone and call and assert some rights and beg them to put it back in there. That's what they want us to do, because that'll be recontracting. It is suggested that we not do that. Don't even pick up the phone. Send them an affidavit and let that be it, and they'll do what they'll do with their own stuff, but we need to notify them by affidavit of who we are and whose resources we're using, and then send them some Dalarium and tell them that you have already placed these Dalarium in your sovereign resource account. Because, see, if you beg for them to put back in what they take because it's theirs in their books. And you recontract with them. All other black debt that they can possibly imagine comes with it. And they might put that little 1,000 or 2,000 fiat back into the account for now. For now, just long enough to bring up those contracts and take it back. But in the interim, they've gotten a contract from the Moors. And we're not trying to do that at all. In fact, we won't be doing that. It is bait. Yes, Justice. In the chat, it's bait. It's bait. A decoy, a fake, more fakery. All they're going to get is an affidavit and some more sovereign dollars. Period. So get ready for that. Don't be mad at anyone, any living, breathing being. That's the way things have to go. It's going to go that way. And we've been being prepared along the way for that to take place. And it won't take place for everybody all at once, but it's going to be pretty quick. It'll be in stages and phases. They're always going to leave 1 or 2 out there to make it look like, you know, everything is just going great with them. They got their fiat flying around, you know, and they always put one sucker out there and tell everybody, oh, look at that one. They're doing great. They're using fiat and they're doing great. Don't buy it. Do you know how many people contract with them from looking at one corpse out there? That's a good question. Empress Portia said, which documents do we need to notify the bank, stores, etc. of our dollarium? The name change in red and all lowercase letters. The judicial proclamation in red and all lowercase letters. The termination of all corporate contracts in red and all lowercase letters. The proclamation of trust in red and all lowercase letters. A lien on whoever it is that you're notifying, or you can just use an overarching United States Corporation Company lien that you do in red and all lowercase letters, unless you're referring to the United States Corporation Company. You can lien all the banks. You can lien the stores, lien them all, and call them into your court, and that can be done all in 1 day, 2 days, a week, however long it takes for you to notify them, to draw up the documents and notify them. And then I would send them a dollarium. And it can be any of the denominations that you want to send them. And let them know that this is what our money looks like. Or you can send them one of each. The CEO document in red and all lowercase letters, that's good, Justice Amo. Yes, that one too. And you tell them this is the money. So we're moving into notify mode. We're moving into notify, and then you also let them. You can let them know that you're the police too. You're the law. You're all of that. That you're the Postmaster General, and also send them unum sanctum. I have them all printed up here because they're all going out. Unum sanctum is a good one because that covers anybody pretending to be the Pope. I was watching a video the other day, actually it was just yesterday, I was watching a video of a colonial Christian colonizer, and I'm watching them as they're moving from corpse status, and I won't say his name, but I'm watching them go from corpse status to the living, but the way they're doing it is really something. Because in his message, he was saying that, and again, Christianity came from us. So the real Christianity came from us. The corporate, commercial, fake Christianity is a creature of that dead corpse state. There's a difference. In his message, he was saying that they need their corporate titles in order to get the benefits, because see, he knows that his house is paid for by the church. So he was saying that they need the corporate titles, but that he doesn't want to be called by a corporate title. He just wants to be a voice. He doesn't want to be called by a corporate title. He just wants to be a voice. And he wants to be a voice that can talk about Isaiah 19, and he specifically said out of his mouth where Israel and Islam are concerned, but we don't want them to have access to our property, and we don't need the whole church to be brought into a legal matter because of the things I say. They know that liens are coming. For any of those Christians doing business as corpses, the Christians need to be raised from the dead. All rise and stand to them too, so that 501c3 piece can go away, because it's not serving any purpose other than to take the life of the sovereign and attempt to hypothecate and subrogate. All of their members, they've been taking their names and putting them in lowercase letters in black and feeding them to the Internal Revenue Service. Yes, in the chat, Empress Chitali, she said, oh yes, they do know liens are coming. Yes, this is urging her to do it. Me too. The ancestors have been saying at some point, y'all got to start looking at that. The only reason that I was thinking, okay, ancestors, give me a little more clarity on that, is because we do not ever want to, freedom of religion is a real thing. That's in the Constitution. And we don't ever want to stop people from serving and worshiping the way that they want to serve and worship on our land. But it cannot be a commercial corporate venue that comes from, or else the worship is in vain. That would be taking the name of the Lord, their God, in vain, which is the Moors. I don't want to hear that, but it's the truth. They've been worshiping the government ordinance department. (501c3), yes. Empress Portia, that's it. And that piece right there is that's what's been feeding the beast, aside from our consent. But see, we have to consent to even sit in those places that we know are corporate. And that one that I was listening to, just watching how they're responding to what we're doing, he said that if anyone asks if he has what's his corporate title, he'll just say he doesn't have one. He said let's just say his name was Bob. That wasn't his name, but let's just say it was Bob. He said, I just want to be called Bob. we have to move past the corporate titles, but we can't go all the way past them because we have government things that we need to answer to. We have, you know, you know, when you start talking about that kind of stuff, you already know. They'd be like, shut her off. Please, just make her be quiet. It's okay. See, we're going to split the hairs. Yes, it's a hot topic. We're going to split the hairs so that all the living beings have all of their rights are what they should be. But those corpses are out of here. Those corporations are out of here. Now, Moors, we have to let them. We first have to do it where we issue a warrant for that all-black name, and then we have to be comfortable with the inferior court, the subject court, issuing and they're already issued. They just hadn't activated them for all of that blackness. But we have to be comfortable with them issuing warrants for that black thing too, in alignment with what we're saying, because that rids the land of the conflict. The conflict has always been that we're going into state courts as blacks and knowing they're going to turn us into blacks, or attempt to turn, or make it look like they're turning us into blacks. I have to go down sometimes to make sure I clarify, because we never were black, never will be. And we have to make sure that we are okay with them issuing warrants for that black thing that they brought onto our land. Let them issue warrants for that thing, because it can't appear anyway. It cannot appear anywhere but a cemetery, a dead corpse. We're the living. Let them let the dead bury the dead. And then everything we do is written in red and all lowercase letters. And see, further down the road, we'll be able to use capital letters in red too, if we choose to do that later on down the road. But right now, we're clearing things up. We're clarifying on the land. Okay. And whenever we use them, yes, it is. Whenever we use capital letters in red, that means we'll be pointing to property and saying this is property. This is sovereign property. Now, Moors, know this, that when you are traveling in the jurisdiction of your ancient ancestral inherited estate, and I've seen this, and you see, I'll just use this as an example. It will say something like Pho Tai Wong's restaurant, or Pho Tai Wong's Asian food, and it's in red. The sign is in red, and it's in all capital letters. That means that they already know that that thing is something that has to do with the Moors, but the Moors we have to get in red and all lowercase letters, because our brothers and sisters from the East are indeed, they already know who we are. And they've been trying to stay out from under the corporation. But now that we're standing, they can. Okay, now that we're sending, they can. One of the India Moors, that's a Moor who is at India territory. I received some of the corporate documents that they issue over there because I wanted to see what they look like. And over there, their corporate documents, whenever the nationals over there are issued corporate documents, and I'm gonna fold this over, or I'll just hide some of what's here. Yeah, I'll just fold it over, so that'll be safer. Whenever they find something, their fake government people find something, they sign it in red and all lowercase letters. There it is right there. You see that? And this is a portion of, yeah, this is just on my screen. I'm not screen sharing. But maybe I will screen share just that portion and retract or redact some, the pertinent things. They write in red and all lowercase letters on their driver's licenses there. So the ones doing business as government are using the sovereign status of the heirs and denationalizing the heirs and having the heirs sign their signature in black. Now, that's not to say that, because see, I know this already, the one who signed it in red like that is a Moor, but they're a sleeping Moor. They're a sleeping Moor, still trading places. And that's why they talk about throughout history, some will say, well, the Moors were selling other Moors into slavery. That's what that is. If you're signing in red and all lowercase letters, and you see somebody that looks just like you, and you know that they are of the same bloodline, and you tell them to sign in black, but you signing in red and all lowercase letters, I don't care who you work for. You're putting them into slavery, and they're allowing you to do it. So one can't be mad at the other. If we allow it, then it's going to happen. Period. And Moors, I'll say this about that too. If there's Moors out there, and there are a few, who have not been able to get past the spell of fiat, and they're charging you fiat for things. Now remember, our freedom is not for sale. Okay? It's not. Not where fiat is concerned. It's not for sale. Yes, that's the Theodore. So, yes, our freedom is not for sale. Nationality is not for sale. Lean process, not for sale, because the process, it belongs to the people. All the processes belong to the people. Our court actions, you can't pay someone else to do a court action for you. That's unlawful. And then still claim you're sovereign. You must do it for yourself. Do your own lien. Don't leave that up to someone else, even if they are a Moor. Don't do that. And then throw around fiat on top of those sovereign documents. Because fiat brings with it energy that we don't need in anything we do. Fiat brings energy to things that we just do not want nor need. Because when you bring fiat between two brothers or two sisters, or however it's done, they could be two who were tight. They had a great relationship. They would even say they loved one another. But then that fiat energy comes in between them, and it ruins everything. And some folks, it ruins it until they transcend, or until they go on to the next phase, until they leave the body. And you done wasted all of that time mad at your brothers and sisters over some fiat, really? That's a no, 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 no. Don't do it. If a Moor is charging you fiat for something, you can't be mad at them if you pay them. Can't be mad at them. If you pay them, you can't be mad at them. And by the same token, the Moor who's charging the fiat can't be mad at the one who said, you know what, I prefer not to pay, anything. Yes, Justice Amos, it's not money. That is the root of all evil. It's fiat. Yes. Yes, fiat is spelled for the benefit of human traffickers, Justice Yezreel Islam. Don't let that energy come in between you and the people you love. And more, whether we know each other or not, we can't let fiat come between us either. The processes are not for sale, period. And anyone buying the processes, you get what you get, because the ancestors are going to go in there and put some energy into that, because we're not supposed to be doing that where fiat is concerned. Now, when it comes to Moorish sovereign dollarium, that's a different story, because our courts are backed by Moorish sovereign dollarium. So that's a different story. That's ours. And Moors we can print that at home. Like the fake Federal Reserve was doing, they got that from us. And so with Moorish sovereign dollarium, we might just say, we want 1,000 Moorish sovereign dollarium for this and 500 Moorish sovereign dollarium for that. We're going to do that. And you don't get it if you don't give the Moorish sovereign dollarium. Why? Because we want to reiterate that money belongs to the Moors. All law is commerce. And then we may consider doing a few things otherwise for Moorish sovereign dollarium. We're going to do the sea salt, only Moorish sovereign dollarium. Period. And we will accept nothing else. Gold, silver, Moorish sovereign dollarium, and any of the currencies done, produced, generated, and originated from Moorish nations. That's not in capital letters and black ink. So we got a few ways to do a few things. Or the ancestors have given us some keys with regard to the dollarium that's just amazing. I thought to myself, that's why we needed this, this, and this. That's why they wanted us to do these things. They were building, and when I say they, the ancestors within each one of us, because we're our ancestors' return. Anybody who comes to our court, even if our court awards them $30 million, it'll be in dollarium, and the court will say, okay, give them $30 million in dollarium so they can go spend it. So, It's all good, and then the Moors can just print what they want. The ones who have at least one set of documents in red and all lowercase letters, and who have the capacity, not the capacity, but who have the willingness to do the court actions and all of that. Because we're all the law. We have to enforce and make law. That's what the titles of nobility are all about. So, with that being said, is there any other wisdom, questions, comments, etc. from the Moors regarding any of the things that we talked about today? Islam. I'm excited about the Dillarium. We will be issuing the first tranches of Dillarium tomorrow on Thursday, June the 24th, which is a supermoon, by the way. So the cosmos knew too. With that being said, if there is nothing further, this sovereign justice stands as law. Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs.
Peace and grand rising heirs.
Peace and grand rising.
Peace and grand rising.
Islam.
Peace and grand rising.
Islam.
Peace and grand rising.
Peace and grand rising.
Islam.
Long live the empire.
Yes, Islam. Islam.